What's this crude drawing supposed to be? It looks like a kid drew it.
It's supposed to be cute.
You think ignorance is cute? Well, I suppose you think mental retardation is downright adorable.
Frittata!
Who would have ever thought that being a Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Digimon fan could be seen as the lesser embarrassment? Pokemon fans are something else. Now, obviously, they're bred from mothers who smoked while they were in the womb. There's no other explanation. I couldn't imagine grown-ass adults waking up at 6 a.m. to try and catch a Pokemon event, when these guys wouldn't even wake up at 7 a.m. to stand in the unemployment line.
My mom's not made of money, you know.
In spite of the massive disappointment that was Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet, that hasn't stopped Pokemon fanatics from flailing their arms around and doing soy face just from one glance at Pokemon Legends. But once you get a glimpse of this game, you can see why Pokemon went with their lawsuit. At this point, it's a little hard to distinguish this from Palworld. Well, the only difference is one visually looks and runs and performs better. And it's not the one coming from the billion-dollar intellectual property. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating there. There is obvious visual differences. What I'm referring to that makes it look like Palworld is the real-time combat. The demand for that battle system shot through the roof after Palworld, and that's why Nintendo and Pokemon Company are pissed off. Now they have to implement it, and they don't do it quite so well. The question is then posed, why is it that Pocket Pair, in their first attempt, is able to blend real-time RPG combat with survival and crafting elements and breeding elements into a map that's far larger than any single piece of content Pokemon could provide, as the Pokemon Legends ZA demo was very hand-picked for early previewers who were already disappointed, which is not good because it was less than 5 months ago where the earliest previews to this game presented an atrocious early look that got the entire internet to talk shit, rightfully so. And the Pokemon Company and Nintendo promised you, hey, hold on, we're gonna address all of this. Just wait till the game comes out. And they really fooled everybody. They got every single dumbass Nintendo fanboy that was defending them to legitimately believe in the span of 5 months, this graphical abomination would be ready and would look a lot more polished and better. Here we are, and once again, Game Freak fails to impress. What we have here is not what you would expect out of the most successful intellectual property on the planet. There has still not been a substantial leap. What we have here is a game that looks outdated even for Nintendo Switch hardware. And I know what you're thinking, well, you know, graphics aren't everything. You're right, but there is no flair, there's no artistic style or unique visuals that make up for it. It is still a bland looking game with bland environments, bland character designs, and textures that are more flat than modern day Lara Croft. That on top of the exploration system, it no longer feels like you're out in the wild hunting Pokemon like you would on something like the Game Boy. While it had strict limitations, it still felt like a Pokemon journey. Now you are limited and confined to this semi-open world city where your capturing and exploration takes place, which just doesn't seem to make sense. Like, what, you're gonna find a rare Pokemon randomly standing by a car in a deep urban city? Instead of going out to the countryside, scaling mountains, crossing oceans, evading dangerous lava, the way Palworld does it, where seamless exploration and monster capturing are blended together perfectly? Instead, Pokemon Legends ZA introduces Wild Zones, which feels like such a major step back from what has traditionally been Pokemon's format for decades, which is being able to encounter them in the wild naturally. Hell, even the original Game Boy games could do that. Granted, you have to walk through grass, but it felt more organic, and fans expected that with time, eventually, that would evolve into you, free roaming an open world where you could see them in their natural habitats, doing what they do, and being able to initiate a capture or a battle. It wasn't much to ask for by today's standards, as Dragon Quest Monsters was already implementing this on the DS. It just doesn't seem to make sense. The fact that Game Freak considers this a mainline game is a sign that perhaps this is where they want the Pokemon franchise to go moving forward, which is just a significant step back. Not just from Palworld, but from the Pokemon franchise as a whole. If these are the restrictions they had to put on themselves in order to get real-time combat, the drawback is too significant. Many say, well, on the bright side, it is the largest city they've ever built, and you'd figure, yeah, that would be nice and all if every building didn't have the same exact JPEG, copy-pasted window, or non-enterable building splattered across the entire map. Uninspiring, uncreative, and bland. And you know it's going to be ass because anytime you enter these buildings, you're just going to be met with menus. So they serve no purpose other than to be a cute little backdrop. No actual reason to explore interiors. No actual ambition here. Now comes the interesting part, and that is the defense from Nintendo fanboys, who are quite possibly the only fanbase I can think of that'll look at a title of theirs taking significant steps back and consider them improvements. How any single Nintendo guy or Pokemon fanatic can even defend this is beyond me. It's quite possibly the only franchise I've ever seen praised for devolving. So criticism of the early previews have been taken to heart. Here is your $80 Pokemon game, bro. Holy shit, I fucking hate Game Freak so much.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
No, in all fairness, I don't think the game's gonna be $80. Not in my region anyway. Maybe in Canada or Australia you're gonna be paying $100. But I'm thinking it's gonna be $70, which is still far too much for what looks to be the most outdated quote-unquote AAA game. This post got over 33,000 likes, which is impressive. Because you know all those dislikes don't come from Pokemon fans, which is a good thing. Because if the whole point is to try and get new players, people looking at this are going to laugh their asses off, while returning players will look for any little defense they can find. When the next gen Halo was revealed and it ended up looking like a blocky, low-res texture mess, everyone took a shot at it. When Spider-Man 2 released as a buggy mess with inconsistent visuals, everyone took a shot at it. When Pokemon gets the same treatment, it's defended, as you will see here.
Keep in mind, 90% of us play Pokemon for the story. The Pokemon of the gameplay, not the graphics. I know, wild.
Cum is my favorite breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I love cum!
Funny enough, all three of those things have not evolved whatsoever. That's like saying you watch porn for the story. Of course, graphics are not a priority with the Pokemon series, but then again, the graphics were never so god-awful either. No, the graphics don't have to take front center stage, but the graphics need to be presentable enough that you're immersed in the game's world, where Pokemon had the most static landscapes. Why Pokemon gets a free pass for having objectively bad graphics is beyond me. The Pokemon Company has enough money to literally run a global empire of merchandise and entertainment. How expectations continue to drop for this franchise is a testament to this company's success. They are too big to fail. Too big for their audience to care. You were paying full price for a game that was nearly unplayable on the Switch 1. How people accept that but demand better out of other companies makes absolutely no sense. The double standards here are all due entirely to the fact that the Pokemon audience is a bunch of man-children who never grew the fuck up. These guys will shut down all criticism before they ever shut their wallet closed.
Imagine just being a Pokemon fan because you love Pokemon. Does Game Freak do things I don't like? Yes. Can you criticize them? Yes. But this is just so hateful to the point where I gotta question if people actually just hate Pokemon and have unreal expectations of what Pokemon is.
I love cum!
Jesus Christ, the dick writing for this franchise. Grow the fuck up. You man-children are embarrassing. My love for Pokemon transcends reality itself. You just being hateful. Yeah, there's missing animations. Yeah, they took out open world exploration and capturing Pokemon in the wild. Yeah, the real-time combat looks like ass. Yeah, there's still no basic voice acting. Yeah, the visuals are outdated even by Nintendo standards. But I love Pokemon and that's why I play it. The fact that the best defense they have is, I'm a Pokemon fanboy, is embarrassing as fuck. To ask for the most basic things like good visuals, good performance, voice acting, proper animations, expanded gameplay and content is not unreal expectations. What the hell is Nintendo and Pokemon Company putting in the games to turn these people into massive retards? This is the richest intellectual property on the planet. There are no unrealistic expectations. They can financially meet all of them and have the resources to do so. They just choose not to because you're gonna buy it anyway, regardless of the quality. What I find unreal is how Pokemon fans have tolerated this. Sword and Shield should have been the first and the last straw. That should have been the lowest selling Pokemon game in history, but it wasn't. Pokemon fans were there to make sure it was a success so that they could get another piece of shit. That way they can get another piece of shit because they love eating caca. They got their mouth straight at the anus of the Pokemon Company, eating the turds as soon as they come out.
I got Tiny to eat a shit sandwich. I got him to eat a poopy.
These guys love the thrill of a new Pokemon game coming out more than they actually like the games, because if they really did love this franchise, for the sake of its quality, they would shut their wallets and send Nintendo and Pokemon Company a message they'll never forget. Hot take, if you can't afford an $80 game, then you shouldn't play it. Gaming is a privilege, not a right. Nintendo treats their employees well, and if you're not willing to fork over $20 extra in cash to support that, then you don't care about game developers.
And I hate poor people, and I hate poverty, and I'm sick of lying about it. I'm not gonna pretend that I don't, okay? I love the rich.
I don't even know what to say to that one. We're expected to pay more because a company treats its employees right? This isn't a fucking charity. I don't care if a company treats its employees right. If the end result is not a good product, you're not getting my money. Who legitimately goes out of their way to buy a $100 product that falls apart within minutes and just tells themselves, well, you know, at least those employees that made this are happy because they're being treated right. And that's all that matters. If this is the group that's voting with their wallets and these are the choices they're making, we are cooked. The industry is fucked. You are a consumer, not a philanthropist.
Don't give a shit. Cry about it. Mofos need to realize that folks play games for different reasons. Not everyone cares about graphics and think they're the end-all be-all. Just because you want certain shit doesn't mean others are wrong or brainwashed for not caring.
I love cum!
Sorry to tell you this, but Pokemon as an IP doesn't become the richest one on the planet if it doesn't have a brainwashed audience to go along with it. At this point, they're only buying Pokemon because they're conditioned into doing it. Most will already decide to purchase it upon hearing there's a new Pokemon game before even seeing it. You know, for an audience that claims they don't care and tell others to cry about it, they certainly care what others think and say about the franchise. Because in their hearts, they know we're right. They know Game Freak can do better. They know Pokemon could be way ahead of where it is right now. They know the franchise could introduce brand new mechanics and expand upon its world. They just don't want it brought up because it leads them to regretting their purchase almost immediately. That's why every single time you see these people show up, they always say, just let people have fun. Bitch, why don't you turn off your phone and go play your little kids game in peace and quiet? Oh, I know why you won't, because you care what others think, in spite of acting like you don't. And the original post wasn't even putting anyone down. I just love how Pokemon fans come flocking to this post, taking it personal, and putting up this huge defense for Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, even though that doesn't result in anything beneficial for them. It doesn't improve the franchise, nor does it improve the experience or the visuals or anything. You're just wasting your time flapping your gums. The fact that we have fan-made games with fan-made animations that look a million times better than anything Game Freak has put out in the past 5 years is a disgrace, and you know it. Low expectations only being tolerable and acceptable for Pokemon is such a clear double standard because these guys would not accept it for the rest of the industry. I don't give two shits how any of these people feel. I love shitting on Pokemon. Well, current gen Pokemon anyway, because it's deserved. Why we must hold back criticism or actual thoughts for this franchise doesn't make any sense. It's the biggest IP on the planet. Of course, it's going to receive the largest criticism, but these guys call it hate. They call it bullying, harassment, because they're weak, pathetic little twig boys. It's clear as day that the worst enemy to the Pokemon franchise is its fan base. They've steered this franchise straight into being the biggest AAA joke. I really don't think Palworld would be that sweeping success if Pokemon wasn't so far behind the times. And that's saying something because Palworld is rough around the edges. Palworld is not a perfectly polished game by any means, but it's also not made by the richest IP on the planet. And yet, in spite of that, they innovated the gameplay formula that Game Freak has had trouble cracking for years now. There are no excuses. Anybody pre-ordering this, anybody buying this, has no right to complain about any other IP ever again. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video.
Free Congo sucks ass.